Perry just found the angle first and were able to get a knock, which gave them a 3v2 for that position. So we are moving to Brackish, though. It's our one game here on Zero Dam. And now as we head to Brackish, it is a Mandel Brick round. And this is where, yes, we think maybe the tone was set by Perry, but here in game number 2, I mean, Tiff, what do you expect from a Mandel Brick round? What do we think about operators? It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I think this is where you might start seeing some Lunas come on out. Typically, if you have a Mandel Brick round, you want to save your Luna. So anyone that's maining Luna on these teams is going to feel a lot more comfortable. Plus, if you think about what we witnessed back in the Delta Force Global League with Leisure on Siletes, they really excelled bringing out Viren and making sure that they were super defensive. So as we look at our operators to see what's actually available for this round, you can kind of get a feel for that, right? Perry on your screen, of course, they had a stellar match number 1, but it expended them a D-Wolf, a Viren, and a Hackclaw. So they were really focusing on having the recon capabilities through that data knife up there at the top. Now, for teams that we're thinking of that might play for the Mandel Brick, of course, Mandel Brick Addiction. They've expended a Viren, a Toxic, and a Saniva. What are they going to bring in? Obviously, we need an Assault Operator to keep that aggressive nature, but we saw Saniva's kind of being really vital in terms of actually defending the Mandel Brick depending on where you're going to go decode. And I think that just goes to show you in our overall plan as we kind of get into match number 2 goes, it's like, where do we want to see that play for? Keep your eyes on Royal Museum, obviously right here. That's exactly where we're going to keep tabs on. Once that Mandel Brick spawns, who's going to be the closest team?
Yeah, man, there's so much we could talk about. That's why I love this format. I like that breakdown of the operators, Tiff, because it was super interesting that we saw, I think it was 4 out of our 6 teams use a Saniva in round 1. I'm a bit surprised by that. I mean, we've seen how much value Saniva has in these Mandel Brick rounds to be able to play around this decode station. So I don't know. I'll be curious to see. Maybe they just spin them all now and we run it back. We go back-to-back Sanivas. I know Saniva's not technically one of the most meta operators when it comes to traditional pubs or even some tournaments. But here, when it's a Mandel Brick round, I think they're extremely valuable to be able to hold angles and get information by just playing in the lane. So let's hop into the game. Let's see what the teams decided to go for in terms of their operator selections. I'd expect to see some recon operators like you had mentioned, whether it's Hackclaw, whether it's Luna, or somewhere in between. On your screen right now, Perry, obviously the team to beat with a total of 11.3 mil in assets going into this game. Way up ahead of this leaderboard, but whoever gets that Mandel Brick will jump them or they will be them.
I think that's a really good shot. I mean, you can see over in Royal Museum, it's about 2 minutes, apologies, right there on that timer from when it spawns. You have No Game, No Life over there, as well as Leisure on Siletes. They both spawned relatively close to the museum, and they're getting situated to make that happen. You can see the Shepherd coming through as Saniva, and of course, you do have Toxic. So we're kind of running in that realm of being able to lock things down. So for Leisure on Siletes, you've got the Luru, the Saniva, and an Assault Operator in the form of D-Wolf. So very similar across the board. Want to be able to protect things. But the thing is, where do we go from here? I don't know if you saw right off the rip, the spawn that was over by Asura camp is actually Team Perry. I don't know what's going on, but they're getting some sick spawns. So if this decides to move over to camp, which we've seen many times before, they're going to be poised and ready.
Yeah, it's a really great shout. Museum gonna be the hot spot to start. Then you got to take it to a decoding station. Perry is already on one of those decoding stations, so you're right. If they take it over to camp, they're gonna be in for a rude awakening. The question is, who's gonna take it over to camp? Frankly, picking up the brick first. There's no tried and true method. It's not always fortune favors the bold. Sometimes the team that picks up the brick is usually the team that doesn't actually end up with the decode. Folks that maybe haven't tuned into a broadcast like this before, once you grab this brick, you're going to have a timer. We call it the torch timer. Of about 6 minutes or so to actually, I think it's actually 5 minutes to get it to the decoding station in general. Once you place it in the decode station, the timer will start for the decode. However, teams, of course, can steal that decode. And every time it's stolen, the timer will chunk down about 30 seconds. So the first time it's stolen, it'll reset the timer to 3.5 minutes. Stolen again, it'll reset to 3 minutes, and so on and so forth. The minimum that it can be reset to is 1.5 minutes. So you're racing against the clock, you're racing against your opposition. And of course, loot value is still important as well.
Well, as we kind of work to get everything situated here for No Game, No Life. Things will likely start to get interesting soon. Mandelbricadix, though, they've been doing substantially well in terms of finding those assets and getting them up. But once that Mandelbrick spawns, a lot of our teams are going to start to inch closer, and look who gets their hands on it first. Les Gérants de la Teste. Now, when you think back to the Delta Force Global League Season 2, right? They won that. Remember how strong they were in terms of locking down the decoding side of things. What is different here is the entire composition of their operators. I saw Virons, we had Lunas on the mix when it came through locking things down, but this time we're running with 2 engineers, which I think can be really smart because you've got the traps, you've got the nades, you can use all of those assets to make sure you break it down. And we did choose one of the quite open decoding stations.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one. We've already started the decode. So as a reminder, again, 4 minutes on the clock. If it gets stolen, it'll reset to 3.5, no matter what that timer gets down to. Les Gérants is setting up their traps. Now, again, I think it was a great call out. 2 engineer operators is an interesting one. This feels like a bit more of a defensive meta build, if you will, for their operators. You can obviously throw down the wire here. If you're Saniva, you can play these angles with the shield to actually gather information to see if a team's pushing you. On the other side, the Luru, great as well for information gathering. Can use the guided missile, use the traps. I actually quite like this comp. Triple blaster to be able to play some of these alleyways. Should work out decent for them, but patience is a virtue, absolutely, when you're just playing for the decode. They're basically setting up 2, they're setting up 1 on every angle, which I don't mind this play. The one in the middle can go help out anybody. The key is you just don't want to get picked, so you will see Saniva play a little bit more what I'll call aggressive or out in the open. But speaking of out in the open, YJK found their first knock. Mandelbrick Addiction down to 2 players yet again. This happened in the last map as well. Let's see if they're able to regain just like last one.
Well, I'm looking at kind of how insane fighting prowess they had from the semis, right? Like 15, and they're just getting so antsy here today. Now, doing everything that they can. If Mandelbrick's Addiction, if they should have been the top team last week, could have been the heavy hitter coming into today. But if people have already kind of identified that and just get even more aggro onto them, I think that's the way to counteract that.
Well, Mandelbrick Addiction has lost 1. They were able to get the revive, then lost another. We've traded out a player, so it is a 2v2 technically on paper. We'll see who shoots straighter or finds the angles first. The battle for the bottom side of the map is a big one. You got to remember, Mandelbrick's super important. We'll keep an eye on that timer. That was great shots. Be able to find one from distance. That's you finding Yaku. They were able to get the revive here, Tiff, so I believe it's still a 2v2 for now.
All right, I think this is smart. Make sure we focus on gearing back up before engaging into this and kind of setting that trap, right? You do have a player that's out towards your left, but honestly, there's going to be a peak here. So to be able to anticipate that timing and go off the smoke, maybe divert a bit. I'm surprised they're actually not kind of hailing over this downed player towards the right. They did kind of back up and instead opening it up with nades and pick off another.
Yeah, this is a huge take. Now, it does look like Kaiser was able to find one from distance, which is a nice boon as well. Mandelbrick Addiction now down to 1 because of that. Kaiser found some off angle on Mandelbrick Addiction. And now Mandelbrick Addiction is going to be down to 1 player while everybody else restabilizes. But we got our eyes here on the Mandelbrick because while that's all been happening, Perry says, okay, we might be at the top of the leaderboard, but we won't be for long if we let this team get the brick. So we're going to go for a steal here down on the low side while we're trying to pressure with Kaiser on the high ground. The problem is it's on the other side of that shipping container, and there's a pretty good chance Les Gérants has an angle looking over the top of it. Nice shots from Kaiser to open things up. Sees the other one on the far side. We trade out 1, trade out 2. Zap goes huge, taking down 2 players from Perry. Almost wins the 1v3. Les Gérants, 9 seconds on the clock. Les Gérants down to 1 player.
As long as one player is alive while it's decoded, we are good and well. And there you go. Your first Mandel brick has been decoded. Now, mind you, we have LAN on the line. We have China. Our top 2 teams will move on from this to compete for $500,000. And the key to success, getting those Mandel bricks.
Unbelievable. We've got more fights happening right now. Saniva grappling people in, trying to beat people down, but Fallen wins the gunfight, wins the shield bash fight. Saniva versus Saniva, but player advantage always stands tall. 3 players alive for Fallen, 3 players dead for NGNL. No game, no life. Out of here in this lobby. Ledgerance, the first with the brick. Paris wanted to prioritize making sure they stayed alive, and they were able to do that. We'll see if they're able to wipe this team that just got the Mandel brick.
Well, imagine you get the Mandel brick decoded, and next thing you know, you can extract with a ton of value, and it's gonna be Nox out here trying to hold it down. His 2 teammates right here, Perry, have been so crazy in terms of their fighting. Keyser over there on the other side. Just keep your eyes on him. Down to a 1v1, but could they focus on maybe picking some of these teammates back on up to get in the fight? You can see right now, Perry is going to do that.
Nox is crushing it right now with a chance of the 1v3. Perfect read. Perfect find. Ledgerance, the top of the leaderboard because of the Mandel brick, and they just wiped the team at the top of total assets. A huge boon for them. They're able to loot up all these bodies, get everybody back on their feet. Fallen is going to try to third party this quickly. They should hear the revive timer as well. Nox is going to have to do it again. He already won a 1v3. He's got to do it again, this time against Saniva.
Well, make it a 2v3, but Zap's going to be out of the fight for the time being until he can gear back up, and Pro Rock is just running straight on in, senses blood in the water, wants to get into the action, but here's HR from a different angle, and off-screen knocks down, knocks out, and it's just Zap having to hold on.
Zap having to hold on or run away. Either way, you're not going to run away from a Saniva. Down you go. Wiped out of this lobby. Do they care? Sure. But do they really care? Not really. They get the brick. They lose their loot. This is a huge boon for Fallen as well. But like you mentioned, we are playing for tickets to China, of course, and thousands of dollars. And getting the first Mandel brick has set you up for success. You're now the team to beat. They've lost quite a bit of loot in this one, but even still, so worth it. And several kills as well. You got to remember, that's 300k per kill that they'll get back going into the next round. So they're not going to be broke, even with that Mandel brick being secured.
Oh, definitely not. But this is what you're going to have to do, right? If you're playing for second, right? You don't get the Mandel brick. What's the best thing you can do? Out-loot Perry. They had North. I mean, look, that's kind of nice, right?
Shit, nice find. 2 mil? Yeah. Mandel brick supercomputing unit? I'm down. Sorry, that just surprised me. Nice read from our observers there.
Yeah, they're like, hey, look at the goods here. Now, we can kind of bring it back and talk about the other teams that might just be focusing on looting and getting things up. Now, YJK down there in the south by New Tower of Babel, the quality that they've got in their loot pool, probably pretty decent. Fallen mid-map, and you've got Mandel bricks, Dix up there towards the north, likely looking to get on out. It's a regain, right? And there we go. We are saving. We've got millions. We get 1 player out.
Yeah, 1 player out. Of course, Ledgerance fully out of this lobby. Mandel brick addiction. It was actually Kaiser that found the off angle from Perry to take down 1 player of Mandel brick addiction that forced them to scatter and run to the wind. So Mandel brick addiction down to 1 player, able to extract out through, I assume, through the Tower of Babel. But now with only 2 teams remaining on the map with a decent amount of loot. One thing we'll notice, I was going to say this before, but now you'll definitely notice on the left-hand side of your screen, when you see that leaderboard, we're going to have an assets obtained. That's going to be in this match. So obviously you see Perry down there with only 500k. You know that's not their total. We will see total assets on the left as well. I'll try to call it out when we swap back and forth between them. But Perry at about 500,000 from this lobby, which basically is nothing because they get wiped. But got a couple kills. That'll be some extra 300, 600k or so, however many they picked up. And here's a quick look at it. Oh, gosh, I love our production team, Tiff. There's a look on the left. This is their total assets as of current. So, Ledgerance at 4.1 mil. Plenty of money to play next round with decent equipment. They obviously got the Mandel brick. Puri overall amount is pretty high still. But YJK totally, and Fallen, frankly, closing the gap dramatically. because of some of these kills being able to loot up their opponents.
All right. Yeah, this is a stellar game number 2. Vastly different from match number 1, which to be expected, right? Very slow pace, very much focusing on the Mandel brick at hand. But you think back to the semis, people were playing all over the place. So I love that we've kind of honed in. The issue is I didn't expect the Mandel brick to go so quickly right off the map. And I think that takes people by surprise, right? So you think about what's going to happen in match number 4 when we see the next Mandel brick. All of this is going to change. So you might as well prioritize getting as many kills as possible, as much loot as possible, so you can take them down next time.
Yeah, just pick up any scraps that you can, as long as you get out of the map, of course. This is the true operations gameplay loop, folks.
Watch this, you coward!
Do the missions, get the loot, and get out. These teams don't all know how many teams are in the lobby still, so you still got to be careful, as they're going to be looting up some of these safes, doing some of the missions up here at the Tower of Babel. A huge boon to win Tower of Babel as well, too. Tiff, we talk about this often. I heard you and Vivid talking a lot about this. Vivid is a loot goblin, just like I am. And being able to win out of Tower of Babel is huge. There's a ton of loot here in the Tower of Babel. One of the highest value loot areas in any of the maps, frankly. So if you can get lucky, I mean, you can find some really good stuff doing missions like this, but also just generally looting up the entire POI.
I just laugh because it's like, how do I get to work with so many loot goblins over here? I'm the person that you have to keep tabs on because you put a little shiny object in front of me or the potential for a fight, and I'm invested, right? It's get me involved. I'm full sent. I'm that player you don't want. You'd probably rather have someone hanging behind, making sure that they're organizing everything and their safe box is absolutely kitted out. But here, that is going to be so much more exponentially needed because it is China on the line land to cement yourself in Delta Force competitive history. So that's exactly what we're looking for of our teams. And quite frankly, YJK, Fallen, both doing everything that they can to move themselves up that leaderboard. You can see that extraction point there in the center. Of course, you do have the extract in the new Tower of Babel. It's going to cost you, though. You're going to need some dog tags, and I believe only one person can actually use it. So we're going to have to focus maybe on a mid-map contest.
Yeah, mid-map contest on the extraction point makes a ton of sense here. Could run through, like you just mentioned, dog tag extract on the north side, or sorry, south side of the map in the Tower of Babel, but I'll be curious to see if they actually fight over this middle extraction point. There's enough time on the clock to get there for both teams. I think you're right. I think we will see this fight mid-map. They have the dog tags to potentially get out, but I think they're going to come out and play for this. This is going to be fun.
I like that Fallen's already setting up for it. You're sending one kind of overextended out to make sure they can pick up some things. But when you've got YJK, they're staying very close to one another, which can be smart or could be detrimental. But I think you'll start seeing them take form here just maybe like 30 meters ahead. You've got Dr. Prometheus up there in the north as well, hanging out. But here's the deal. How are we going to set this up, or will we get caught out?
I think the angles here are usually, and I would have said this about Zero Dam as well, usually the team that sets up first wins the fight.
Right.
It's not always the case. Just about who finds the first angle. See Fallen setting up well. Again, Fallen came in and basically third-partied everybody. So they were able to find quite a bit of loot. You can see their total assets have jumped up dramatically on our overall leaderboard on the left-hand side. Up to almost 8 mil. So that gap that Perry had created in the first round closed pretty significantly. Here's the off angle. Minute and 20, still plenty of time for YJK to creep up here and make a play for this extract. As a reminder, I'm sure you've all experienced this before. Maybe not, though. It happened in our first round already. If you get knocked, but you're not fulled and you're inside of the extraction zone, when it hits 0, you do extract while crawling around. They just got to get there when the timer hits 0 and hope they don't get full wiped. Oh, yeah, we've spotted them out, Tiff.
I was gonna say there's no way they miss that, right? They kind of look on over, get a little bit of inkling. Yeah, they see the shield, and right now it's about who's gonna be right there. Maybe they can distract Pro Rock, but as soon as you invest the frag grenade, someone's gonna know you're immediately just on the other side of this fence. Now, can you rip the players out from behind the cover? It's gonna be difficult because you have to look at what do we have. You've got a detection arrow, you've got a volt arrow, and maybe you can hit some nasty lineups from that Luna. So let's see.
Yeah, this Sineval hold on the left side is genius, though. I mean, you basically can't push through this door. Can't even jump peek the door because Sineva's there with the shield up, so they're in trouble right now. Arrows coming through. 8 seconds on the clock, by the way, for the extraction. I don't think they're going to make it there in time. It's top middle next to the mini-map. 3 seconds and counting. Here's the push. Fallen trying to get there, and all three get out. Not a single member of YJK get out of the map. Too slow. Got to move quicker than that, gentlemen. Perfect setup from Fallen. A perfect extraction. And now we're off to the races to try to get out of this map if we possibly can. I don't think they're fast enough. And I think they're realizing that. Right now, it's about optimizing your safe boxes, gentlemen. You got.
Yeah, optimize those safe boxes, but maybe you can still send someone up towards that extraction in the tower, but time is of the essence, and you can send them in with as much as possible, but you look at the safe box here, and you do have at least one item in there that is red, so I mean...
Yeah, I think they brought it in, though. I mean, usually that's what these players do, is they'll bring in some goods in their safe boxes so they don't lose them. And that's kind of their most expensive stuff they brought in is going to be some of those repair kits, so... I mean, you don't lose that, which is, I mean, that's what you want to do, right? It's not going to help your overall leaderboard necessarily.
Still safe.
But it won't hurt it either. And a couple wine cups, I guess. Yeah, this is brutal. That's a tough loss for them, honestly. I think they just should have tried moving faster. Obviously, it was a perfect setup from Fallen, but even still, this player just barely, I think, missing. Back to the Delta Force Invitational Qualifiers. EU Regional Finals has been a banger thus far. Here's a quick look at our scoreboard. This is just from match 2, Tiff. Obviously, Les Durants, they get the Mantle Brick, and they do get a wiped eventually. The big winners, besides our Mantle Brick capturers, Fallen. 7 million round is a nice one.
Yeah, I'm okay with it, right? They were the full team that extracted there in the center of the map. YJK down at the bottom at number 6, right? They're the ones that initially took that challenge but couldn't get anyone out. So you can see that stark difference. It's unfortunate that they couldn't even like sneak one in to really navigate that extract, but you got Mandel Brick Addiction there in third with 2.6 million kind of on the up and up. They only sent one player out of that map on Brackish. No game, no life. They haven't really had maybe the showing that they would like thus far, but getting out with a nice 1.7 million, I'm okay with it. For Leisure on Silates, the real storyline, obviously the Mandel Brick. When you think about the long game of the series and trying to snag your tickets to that global finals, that LAN there happening in China to compete for $500,000, what's gonna happen if someone comes in and grabs 2 Mandel Bricks back to back in 4 and 5? And you're kind of here with a Mandel Brick, that would get you second, right? But what if someone else, a couple different teams gets it? Let's look at the overall and see what that is shaping up to be that you're going to have to contend with if multiple teams get Mandel Bricks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I want to remind people at home, Mandel Brick, your first ranking metric on the leaderboard. So everybody else is ranked via total assets. That's why Perry is in second place by only a little bit now, by the way, with how big of a map Fallen just had, coming in, playing cleanup, picking up the rest of the loot, and getting out of the lobby. Really well done from them to stay within striking distance. Les Durants at the top because of their Mandel Brick. Perry in second right now after 2 because of the insane map 1 that they had on Zero Dam. But everybody else ranked accordingly. Decently even for 4, 5, and 6. A race at the top, a race at the bottom, but anything can happen. 3 million, it seems like a lot. It's not all that much of a spread. Plenty of room to work on this leaderboard going into round 3 here, Tiff.
I think those are all really good shouts. So there's going to be a lot to move here, especially when you talk about going into the airdrop round next. It's making sure that you can grab those airdrops, getting the coveted armors or potential helmets. We saw a player grab 2 fossils right off the rip of the first airdrop.